So you want to learn how to squat big weight? Listen up, brother, because you've come to the right place for that. It has been proven mathematically that if you have a big squat, it is the most likely indicator that you will have a bigger bench and bigger deadlift. So why not increase your baseline strength by increasing your squat? You're going to be stronger anyways, might as well do it the best way possible. Squats are going to be the difference between having that big, juicy dump truck ass you've been striving for the past 10 years and having that Greek Gotti of a physique that you want and just simply not being strong. There are, however, some key things you need to keep in mind before you start crushing watermelons with the thighs you've built with your sick leg gains from doing squats. The first thing on the list that you need to consider before you start squatting is the equipment that you have access to. There are 3 types of implements that you can use in order to start squatting. The first thing is a power rack. It is defined as a rack for power movements. It is usually bolted to the floor and it goes all the way up, all the way down, and it's got these safety straps or safety pegs to keep you safe while you're squatting. In a power rack, these metal structures do not move whatsoever. You cannot move it at all. You're not supposed to be able to move it at all because it's a very rigid structure. And the bar sits in hooks on the rack. And what you do is you take the bar out of the rack and you walk it out. And then you can perform your squat. Another option, and my personal favorite option for squats, is the monolift. A monolift has hooks that come down and grab the bar from above. This means that you can take a bar out, and with the aid of a system that pulls the hooks out, you don't need to walk out a squat. A monolift has these arms, which you can have either in like this or out like this to help you aid in good hand placement. I personally like the hooks inside. When you take the bar on a monolift, you either have the option of walking the bar out like you do in a power rack, or some third party can operate the monolift so that you don't have to walk out and you can do your squat. And then you return the bar to the rack and the hooks come back. You also have the option with a monolift to use this hydraulic bottle jack to increase the height of the bar. You jack it up, and there's usually a hole peg system here where you select the hole and then you release the pressure on the jack and the bar goes down to this hole that you selected. That allows you to have a high level of customability when it comes to selecting your rack height. The third and final option when it comes to racks for squatting is a combo rack. It is a combination rack because it can be used for both bench and squats. A combo rack can be adjusted by utilizing a lever to increase the height, where you replace the pegs in the designated requested height, like so. Additionally, a combo rack has adjustable widths for the hooks, just like a monolift. However, instead of being easy and logical, a combo rack has the adjustments at the bottom. You just undo and release the rack. Oh, come on. Keep it up and then you lean it in and it gets sketchy like this. And you must repeat on both sides. This allows you to have a wider hand placement. When you take the bar on a combo rack, you have to stand up and walk the bar out, unlike in a monolift where you can just squat where you stand. There are also 3 kinds of bars that you will be able to utilize when doing a straight bar squat. The first kind is a 65-pound squat bar. It is a much thicker bar, which means that when you take heavier loads, it's going to bend less and have less whip. A common option that most gyms will have is a power bar, which is not as thick as a squat bar, but it is still pretty stiff. It still has a center knurl in the middle so that the bar doesn't slide down your back while you're squatting, just like a squat bar. And the last option is a Texas squat bar, a 55-pound squat bar, which just like the other squat bar is a little thicker, but not quite as thick as a 65-pound squat bar. It will reduce the amount of whip or bend in the bar as opposed to a power bar, but if you're squatting heavy enough, it still bends, trust me. The next thing you have to consider when squatting is the equipment that you attach to your own body in order to perform the squat. This can be knee wraps, where you wrap a elastic or rigid structure such as a knee wrap around your knees to create tension and allow yourself to utilize that tension in your knees to perform the squat. The other piece of equipment that you can attach to your knees to help you stay safe and keep your knees warm and less injury prone are knee sleeves. These just go straight on your knees and you keep your knee nice tight and warm within the knee sleeve. These smell awful. You don't have to attach anything to your knees. You don't need knee sleeves. You don't need knee wraps. You can be completely naked knee when you squat. It's not required to have any sort of knee protection, but I would highly suggest it. The next piece of equipment that is not super necessary, but still I prefer to use because it's nice and it makes me feel good, are wrist wraps. These wrap around your wrists in order to give support to the wrist joint. It feels really bad when you have some heavy weight on the bar and you're torquing your wrist with the bar. This protects your wrist from that torque from the bar and that pressure added to your small, puny wrist joint while you're squatting. The next piece of equipment, which may or may not be the most essential piece of equipment when it comes to squatting, is the power belt. A belt goes around your core and it gives you something to press against in order to stay tight and keep that internal pressure good. There are 2 types of belts that are allowed in powerlifting. There's the lever belt, such as this, where you take the lever and you tighten it and it's in the tight position, and you untighten it when you're done with the exercise. And the other option is a standard regular belt. That's kind of like the belt that you wear to work, where I'm not gonna put this belt on because I'm too fat, where you put the belt through the loop, you hit the hole, and you're inside the belt and you can create that internal pressure. And the last piece of equipment that you need to consider before you go into raw squatting for powerlifting is foot attire. What's gonna determine whether or not you need special shoes in order to squat is your ability to hit depth. Ankle mobility is a major factor when it comes to squatting, because if your knees can't track over your toes well enough and you need to compensate somewhere else, like bending at the hip more, then you're already putting yourself in a compromising position and you should consider getting some squat shoes. These squat shoes have an elevated heel, which allows your ankles to be at a different position relative to the ground, and allows a lot of people who have terrible ankle mobility, such as myself and Daniel Bell, to hit depth. You can squat with no shoes on. Some federations require some sort of foot covering, but there's ways around that, like going to Walmart, getting a $5 pair of grandpa slippers, cutting the sole out so you can still feel the floor, and then doing it like that, like I used to do. When selecting what type of shoes to squat in, you want to make sure that your shoe has no give in it. A squat shoe is a rigid structure. When you squat barefoot, you have a rigid structure of the floor beneath you. You don't want to be squatting in anything that has any sort of give, like running shoes, Crocs, or any sort of squishy foam pump, air pocket, whatever, in the back of your shoe for ankle support, knee support, whatever the shoe companies are telling you that you need in your shoes for running and walking. We're not running or walking, we're squatting. So you need a rigid structure in your shoe. And that wraps up all the equipment you need to consider when it comes to squatting. Now we are on to the moment you've been waiting for, how to actually squat. There are a lot of things to consider when setting up for a squat, such as foot position, hand position, bar position. Before you even take the load, you need to make sure you have a good hand position. What you want when you're squatting is you want tension in your lats, but you also want to be able to control your lats to get under yourself to keep an upright chest while you're squatting. If you're too wide, your elbows flare out and you end up folding forward. If you're too narrow, your elbows still do the same thing because your own lats get in the way. So you want to take an appropriate hand position in your squats so that your lats can move but also be manipulated in order to perform a upright squat. The next thing you want to consider is where to place your feet. Before you even take the bar, you want to set your feet. Your feet should be approximately shoulder width, if not a little narrower or a little wider. That is individual dependent, and you need to play around with the foot position in order to get a consistent squat. You don't want to be squatting out of consistency and have something completely pop up when you're going for a PR. So take your hand position, make your foot position before you even take the bar, and you can lean back on whatever implement that you're squatting in so that you can have your feet in position before you've even taken the bar. It's gonna feel a little weird and you're gonna be leaning back into the rack. Then you put the bar on your back, and there are 3 positions in which the bar can go on your back. There is high bar, which is on top of your traps. There's low bar, which is under your traps. And then there is hybrid, which is size dependent. If you're not big enough to do hybrid, you cannot do hybrid position, which is halfway between high bar and low bar. A lot of people say that it's high bar, but it is on your shoulders, on your scapula. When you take the bar, if you have the correct foot position and you're using a mono, this is when the mono arm can pull out. But if you're using a power rack or a combo rack, you need to walk out the bar. A common mistake of new lifters is walking out too far. You're not gonna clip the rack when you're squatting because you're going straight up and straight down. So take one foot back, next foot back, straight back, and if you had the correct foot position when starting, then you'll have the correct foot position now. So now you're ready to squat, right? Wrong. You still have a couple steps to go through before you can actually perform a squat. You need your elbow position to be correct. You need your core to be correct. You need your eyes to be correct. You need your hips to be correct. So your elbows have to be under you. You don't want them flaring out because that's gonna round your back and fold you forward. You don't want them too narrow because it does the same thing. So get your elbows under your body and let the bar sit on your rigid structure known as your back. Your belly is where you're gonna store your air. Air is a difficult concept when it comes to squatting because you can put your air in multiple spots and it will give you different results. A lot of newer lifters will put their air where it is easily accessed, and that's the upper chest, which is incorrect. You wanna store your air in your belly, expand your belly as much as possible, and then get ready to get punched in the gut. That is called bracing. So when you take your deep breath and hold your breath throughout the squat, you wanna make sure that you have a rigid core and that your shoulders don't rise when you're breathing. Now I am ready to squat. What you want your knees to do is track over your toes. You want the pressure of the bar in the middle of your foot. If you are wearing squat shoes, you want it a little further back onto your heels so that you don't topple over, but you don't want to fall backwards. If you get on your toes, you end up folding forwards. You want your eyes up so that you have a proud chest, because the less forward or backward that your chest does, the less it's going to stress your erectors. A good squat looks like this. A squat that will pass in competition is a squat where the knee crease goes below the top of the knee. If you're doing anything higher than that, then you're doing a knee bend, and it will not pass in competition. So if you PR in the gym, you don't exactly know whether or not you've hit the standards of a competition. It may feel like it, but until you hit it on the platform, it might as well be 135. Now you're on your way to get that thick, juicy dump truck that all the boys will be looking at. Not just talking to the women here, you're on your way to be a muscle mommy. So if you have any questions further on how to perform a squat, feel free to write them in the comments, and stay tuned for more future instructional videos on how to perform the big 3 lifts and how to become the strongest muscle mommy this side of Hampton. As always, I've been Patrick, Full Primal Power, your mom's favorite power lifter. I don't know what to say to sign off, but go get those gains. Just go get them. Just go get your gains.